Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for coming to Senator Rausch's Town Hall event. We're very thrilled to have all of you, and we're very thrilled to be back here at the Senior Center. I won't speak much, but just wanted to plug, we'll do some questions at the end. If you'd like to ask a question, we have a bucket in the front where you can pre-write your questions just so we can make sure that everyone gets an answer. My name is Aidan Doherty. I'm the Senator's District Director. Been with the office for about 2 years now. Yeah, I'll be around afterwards if anyone has any constituent cases or anything they'd like to talk about. I handle that work for our office. So if you'd like to connect, I'll be around afterwards with some business cards. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Senator Rausch.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for coming out. It's great to be here with all of you. Wonderful crowd. It's an honor to serve as your state senator. And I am gonna go up here. Hello? Oh, there we go. Technology. Okay. We're going to get started with these updates in just a minute. But first, I want to recognize all of my wonderful partners in local government who are in the room tonight. From the town council here, just came from another town where they have a select board. From the town council here in Franklin, we have Ted Cormier-Ledger, Brian Chandler, and Patrick Sheridan. We have Anita Mecklenburg from the Norfolk Select Board. We have Jeff Johnson from the Plainville Select Board, and Bill Harrington from the Rentham Select Board. And we have Dave Callahan from the Franklin School Committee. And I think that is everybody. Did I miss anyone? Thank you all for coming tonight. If I missed anyone, I apologize. And I do want to give a special shout out, of course, to my dear friend and colleague in the legislature, my partner in the House, as we jointly represent this wonderful town of Franklin, State Representative Jeff Roy, who's going to share just a couple words before we get started.
Well, thank you, Becca, and thank you everyone for coming on out. I'm just going to welcome everyone to this great community, and it's nice to see that there's a turnout. I hope there are some robust questions here. I do want to say that I'm going to be leaving at 20 minutes to 7, and it's not because I don't like the question that was just asked, but I have to be over in Medway for an award ceremony. But I want to say what a pleasure and a treat it is to serve in the legislature with such a compelling partner in Becca Rausch. She is a fighter. She is a fierce advocate for this community. And as a matter of fact, I have a bill I need to talk to you about. I'll give you that bill number. You don't get things done in this legislature. Okay, all right. You don't get things done in this legislature as an individual. I serve in a body of 160 representatives, and I've got to convince at least 81 of them of an idea that I have. Better to do more than 81 because that'll make it a better idea, and then it goes over to the Senate. And we rely on each other for getting our bills through each branch. And we understand one another, we work together, we're on speed dial, we even entertain together. So it's great to be her partner, and I will have that bill number to you before we leave here tonight. But again, I want to say thank you and congratulations to Becca for convening this event tonight, and look forward to engaging with you all. Back to you, Becca.
Thank you, sir. I don't remember, but I remember that there is a bill that we have to talk about. I got it. All right. I'm going to see if I can operate this properly. Let's see here. Ta-da! Amazing. Fall Town Hall. Technology works. It's so fantastic. Thank you again for coming, and we will get right to it. So I am, again, honored to serve as your state senator here in Franklin and in the many surrounding communities. I was first elected, as many of you know, in 2018. I represent the Norfolk, Worcester, and Middlesex district. That district name changed with the last census and the resulting shift in some of the makeup of the district. So the district is currently 11 towns. Needham, Dover, Sherburne, Medfield, Millis, Norfolk, Rentham, Plainville, Franklin, Bellingham, and Milford, which is a bit of a mouthful, but is it's a good, robust district. I am the first woman and the first Jewish person to serve several of these towns in the Senate. I am currently the only mother of children 10 and under in the Senate as well. I'm a former practicing attorney and former law professor, and now, as so many of you know, I'm in my third term with several leadership positions, some of which you can see up here on the slide. Excuse me, I serve as the Senate Chair of the Joint Committee on the Environment and Natural Resources, ever increasingly important, and this is one of the many ways, actually, that Jeff and I partner together in our committee leadership positions. He handles things that pertain to utilities and energy, and I handle things that pertain to environmental protection and natural resources preservation, and so pretty much if it has anything to do with climate action, it's coming to one of us. Oh, really? Oh, yes, there was a lot of fun on the State House steps this morning. So that is my primary chair position is on the Environmental Committee. I also serve as the Senate Vice Chair of the Joint Committee on Children, Families, and Persons with Disabilities, the Vice Chair of the Senate Committee on the Census, and I serve on the board of the Massachusetts Caucus of Women Legislators. This is my second term in that position, and also on the board of the National Association of Jewish Legislators. I have a staff of 5 in my office, my chief of staff, my legislative director, my district director, Aiden, who you just, there he is. Ta-da. We have a communications director and also a legislative aide, Alex, who you might have met when you walked in the door. We also, from time to time, and in varying numbers, have interns and fellows that join our team, sometimes 1 or 2, sometimes 10 or 12, depending on the season and how much space we can physically create in our State House office. But it's a wonderful opportunity both for the students at varying levels of their education experience and also for us as a team in the State House to collaborate with students from our district, including, especially in the summer, high school students who live in the district, and also college and grad students on a whole variety of matters. Everything from helping people access supports with the RMV up through environmental policy, reproductive justice, you name it, they're working on all of those things. Okay, so what is state government? That building in the middle, hopefully all of you know what it is. That is our State House. The one in the upper corner, of course, the Capitol. And we have a lovely town hall photo in the bottom corner. I like to think of state government as the middle child of government. Anything that's not federal pretty much is going through the state government, and basically everything that impacts everyone's lived, direct, daily lives, state government has a hand in it. Often it's in partnership with our friends in local government. And again, thank you to so many of you who are here this evening. And frequently also in partnership with our federal delegation. As Jeff mentioned, this only works as a partnership, not only within our own body in the state legislature, but throughout the many government systems that we have that support all of us in our lives, in our families, in our communities, of small businesses, et cetera. Primarily, we have 3 buckets of work that we do in the legislature. There's the district bucket, right, supporting all of our towns that we represent, and also supporting all of you, the constituents. That's the first bucket. Second bucket is about the budget. How are we spending spending wisely and appropriately our state dollars, and directing those into the areas most needed. And then the third bucket is a policy bucket, right? Passing laws, making laws. I was talking with a group of students about this. Was it yesterday? It might have been yesterday. And they were very excited to have 3 buckets to think about, right? So district and constituents, budget and policy, and we are delivering real results that are really meaningful and significant in each of those 3 buckets. So here's the first bucket, the constituent and community connections bucket. What you see listed up here on the slide are all of the many, many, many ways that we connect with people all throughout the district. I have monthly office hours, and they alternate between in-person and virtual, so people can sign up for whatever format works best for them. We have plenty of emails and phone calls and messages that come in through our website. We have a dedicated constituent services team that is Aiden and Alex, both of whom happen to be here tonight, so that's very convenient. If anyone has any issues, I encourage you to talk with them when we're finished this evening. We have the Small Business Advisory Council. There are many folks from Franklin and this southern region of the district who serve on that Small Business Advisory Council. I'll talk about that more in a minute. We have our Student Summit and our Youth Town Hall. That Student Summit happens in the spring annually. It's for high school students in the district. We bring them to the State House every spring, and they participate in a whole day's worth of activities and learning that culminates in policy pitches to me and my legislative director, and some of those we're actually evaluating right now as we consider legislation to file next term. The Youth Town Hall is a lot like this, except virtual, because younger people can't necessarily drive yet or can't get access to a car, and so we do that over Zoom. And that's actually something that started during COVID, when we knew that students really needed better supports, and we needed to hear from them, and the only way we could do it was through Zoom. We also have a high school internship program that I mentioned before. The Rausch Report is our monthly newsletter. You can sign up for that on our website, beccarauschma.com. And of course, we have various social media handles. You can see from the graphic there that this term alone, we've had over 11,000 contacts from people in all sorts of different ways, in all sorts of different issues, most of which are advocacy, and a little over 800 of which have been specific issues that we've helped to navigate for people as they run into bumps along the way with various state agencies. Some of the things that might present one of those bumps, things that we provide support on, include assistance with housing or unemployment, mass health, retirement benefits, the RMV. I don't know about all of you, even I have run into, sometimes you run into an issue with the RMV. We can try to help move that along. Oops, that was not right. Wait a minute. There we go. Sorry, pushed the wrong button there. Just to give you a better breakdown of that big circle full of constituent contacts, just by town, among the towns in this southern region of the district, we had 805 contacts from Bellingham, 1,744 from Franklin, 1,271 from Milford, 745 from Norfolk, 493 from Plainville, and 948 from Rentham, which is about proportional to the populations in each of those towns. I did promise you we would come back to the Small Business Advisory Council. This was something also that came out of COVID. We started it officially in 2022. We knew that small business owners were running into unique and distinct problems, and we wanted to have a direct line of communication so that we could figure out how to solve those problems, if we can. And many small business owners throughout the district belong to this advisory council, including Franklin 67 Brewing and La Cantina and an Unlikely Story in Plainville. We meet 3 times a year. We are always welcoming new members, so if you are a small business owner or you know of a small business owner who might want to join us, please let us know. You can talk with Aiden after the session this evening is over. And we have delivered wins every single calendar year since we started the Small Business Advisory Council, in collaboration with those partners and also with our collaboration with our friends and colleagues in the legislature. So the first one was passing legislation to require a single portal, one place on the state government website where small business owners can find all of the available grant opportunities. This is something that owners said, we need help and we need to be able to access those state dollars, and having to go to 20 different URLs to find them is really difficult. So we passed legislation to require the administration to create this small business single entry portal for all of their grant opportunities. The second piece came in calendar year 2023. It was something we called Green the Garbage. It was a pilot program to help small businesses through grants to better incorporate composting into their waste management system, right? So if you have a single garbage stream and you want to split it into two, those startup costs can be very challenging. So we created a grant program to help with those startup costs. And our partners in the administration tell us every single penny of that grant bucket has been spent, and they're looking for more, so we're going to continue to try to get more dollars into that. And then just this year in '24, we have the Plastics Alternative Small Business Grant Program. This is, again, something we're hearing from business owners who want to shift to eco-friendly products and move away from single-use plastics. But again, those costs, the initial costs can be prohibitive, so we created a grant program for that as well. Our next Small Business Advisory Council meeting will be here in Franklin. It will be open on October 21st at 10 in the morning. And again, it'll be here in Franklin. We're still finalizing a location, and open to businesses, whether you're a member or not, business owners, whether you're a member of the Small Business Advisory Council or not. And we will be joined by the Senate chair of of the Senate Committee on Ways and Means, Mike Rodriguez. So he'll be here in Franklin talking with all of you. So I look forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun and very informative. Okay. Now we can go to funding wins. So that was the first bucket, the constituent district bucket. This is now the second bucket, the budget bucket. And we have many, many, many budget wins. The entirety of the fiscal 25 budget, right? So we are in fiscal year 25 from the state perspective. It started July 1, was a $58 billion budget. And so I'll go through some of the particular funding by town first, and then we'll talk about some of the statewide money. So for Franklin, since that's where we are currently sitting, total funding for the town of Franklin is just shy of $34 million. That includes, the biggest chunk of that is for education, what we call Chapter 70 money, which is just shy of $30 million, plus some unrestricted government aid and some funding for roads and bridges. And in these four darker blue circles, you see funding that Jeff and I, through our terrific partnership, were able to secure for particular projects that the town, people right here in the town said, these are the projects that we want to fund. Right, so the Franklin Performing Arts Center, the Downtown Partnership, the Food Pantry, Safe Coalition, which didn't even make it to the slide. We've done such a wonderful job. And the public art installation here in Franklin, which I'm seeing now pop up, and it's great. It's really wonderful. Rentham, also on this slide, total funding, $5.6 million. Again, the biggest chunk is education. Always the biggest chunk is the education dollars, which, and that's just for the Rentham Elementary District, because KP comes in a different amount because it's regionalized. So $4 million for the education, the elementary education system in Rentham only, plus the unrestricted government aid, which is a little over $1 million, and the roads and bridges. And I was able to secure an amendment in the budget for $50,000 for the Rice Recreation Complex lighting. Okay. Rounding out the KP towns, Plainville, $4.3 million. Again, same story, biggest bucket of that is the education funding that came in just a little over $3 million for Plainville. Again, that's just the elementary schools. And these darker blue circles for these additional projects, a new town well, we can't live without water, $20,000 for that, and $50,000 for a water meter replacement. So as you can see, we're really focused on supporting Plainville when it comes to water. I'm sure this Jeff, two Jeffs in the room, this Jeff could tell us a lot more about that. And the town of Norfolk, total at just shy of $5.4 million. Again, largest chunk in the education system, $3.7 million, just the elementary schools, and plus the unrestricted government aid and the roads and bridges funding, and these two additional pilot projects that we have been working on. I've actually been working on the parking lot at the senior center for many, many, many years now. And so another $50,000 I was able to secure in this budget. And hopefully, I think we're getting close to done. We're nearly there. nearly there. I'm seeing Anita nod her head yes. Okay, terrific. Great. It's so great to see them actually come to fruition. And then the last 2 towns in the southern region of the district, and again, we have 5 more towns in the northern region. Their town hall was a couple weeks back. Milford's funding, the biggest chunk here, came in at 53 million, almost 53 and a half, with these additional allocations for a fire system in the town hall, 25,000 for Chris's Corner, that is a substance use recovery facility in the town of Milford, doing some really, really wonderful work. I was actually just talking with a member of their select board earlier today about it, and 50,000 for one of their field complexes. And just shy of 13 million for Bellingham. Again, biggest chunk in the education bucket. That's the Chapter 70 money. All of this is per capita by town, with a little bit also by need. And these additional allocations, 35,000, let me be clear, to make the Silver Lake Park more accessible, and another 10,000 for the playground at the Stallbrook Elementary School. These are the regional schools. Again, this is in addition to the town-specific school funding that you saw on the previous several slides. I don't need to read you all of those dollars, but they're up there. Again, this is by student enrollment, so that's why you see some varying different levels of funding come in. Okay, these are the statewide funding wins that I was mentioning before. These are actually just some of them, if you can believe, but really, really proud of the work we were able to do in this fiscal 25 budget. Several of these are priorities of mine. In fact, everything you see on the screen in front of you are priorities of mine that I helped to champion. $1.8 million for the Hey Sam Youth Mental Health text line. This is something that actually started from that very first youth town hall that we did back in 2021. I won't go through all of the history, but it's something that literally started because young people in our district bravely came and talked with me and my staff and said, we need different and better mental health supports. And out of that conversation, I was able to secure a partnership with the Samaritans, and within a matter of weeks, $250,000 for the pilot program that became Hey Sam. And it was so successful that that $250,000 in the first year became a full $1 million in the second year. And we have consistently funded Hey Sam and the suicide prevention services that Samaritans provides all across the state at $1 million plus, right? So this is $1.8 million in the current fiscal year. Hey Sam, just for additional information, is a peer-to-peer volunteer-run service where trained young people can speak directly with young folks, their peers, who are in need in any sort of mental health moment. If they're experiencing a stressful test, a fight with their parents, maybe a partner, all the way up to and including suicidal ideation. And these young people are trained. And they also, again, Samaritans, in addition to providing this and operating this Hey Sam Youth text line, they also provide general non-age restricted suicide prevention services. Not pictured on the slide actually is an additional $10 million for improved regional transit authority connectivity. This is really important, especially for this region of the district, where you can get on one bus in one place and another bus in another place, but if you want to go between the bus lines, they don't talk to each other, which is a problem because you can't walk that far. And so I said, how can we make these folks talk to each other? And so in this fiscal 25 budget, there's a $10 million allocation specifically to support RTAs making that connection, right? That connection between, overlapping basically by one town, so you can get off one bus line and get to the next bus line and get wherever you need to go. $125,000 for the small business program that will help businesses shift from single-use plastics to more sustainable and eco-friendly products. That's up there, right? You can see it in the center. That's also, that I mentioned on the last slide, from the Small Business Advisory Council collaboration $2.5 million for the Civics Education Trust Fund. That's available to schools all across the Commonwealth who are working on civics education, and that's every school in the state. And $2.5 million is about level funding from last year and to this year. And we're seeing some really, really fantastic results and engagement from students all across the Commonwealth. $600,000 for the Ellie Fund, which supports women with breast cancer and their families, those wraparound services. Another one not on the slide, $300,000 for an organization called Hope and Comfort, which is a nonprofit headquartered in our district that provides people with essential hygiene products, right? People who are facing hygiene insecurity, soap, toothpaste, toothbrushes, deodorant. These things are not covered by SNAP and WIC and other existing government benefit programs, so and government support systems. So if we want to make sure that people have access to things like toothpaste and shampoo and deodorant, we have to provide them some other way at the moment. So this organization is doing that work all across the state. $50,000 for recovery housing for students, right? Substance-free housing for students who are in recovery. This actually comes from a partnership with an organization that is run by a parent who lost a child to an accidental overdose at the age of 18. So heartbreaking story, and these parents have turned that unimaginable tragedy into significant, meaningful advocacy that is going to help save lives. So this is part of that work, and we were successfully able to get that done this term. $200,000 for the Massachusetts Women's History Center. Again, ongoing work that actually originated out of the work that came from celebrating the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment and the women's right to vote. And another one not on the slide, $15,000 for a diaper changing station pilot program. This may seem, it's not a lot of money, especially in the grand scheme of a $58 billion budget. 15 grand, costs about $100 or so to put in a changing station. But I can tell you from my own personal experience, and also from the many, many, many experiences that have been shared with me over the years, that this is going to make a big, big difference for a lot of people. I had one dad, in my research about this, one dad tell me when he couldn't find a changing station or a changing table for his daughter, he just changed her right on top of a bar. I thought there's got to be a better way. And we've now provided 15 grand for people to install those changing stations. Again, all of this is part and parcel of a total $58 billion budget. And some of those additional provisions across the Commonwealth include free community college, continued universal free school meals for K-12 students. The state started picking up that tab in fiscal '24 after the federal funding for that went away. There's a ban on home equity theft. That seems really important. Our home is people's biggest investment, right? Your biggest component of your equity. We want to make sure that doesn't get stolen. $1.55 billion invested in the early education and care sector. And that includes $475 million in C3 grants to early education providers. This sector almost went under during COVID, and it was a stark wake-up call to everyone that childcare is infrastructure, and we have to invest in it, and we are doing that with this bill. Another thing, we saw the Chapter 70, that education dollars come in, that is fully funding the Student Opportunity Act on schedule. This year, the per pupil funding increased to $104 per student. That's a pretty significant increase over the last fiscal year. We also had $193.5 million for veteran services. That represents an 11% increase from fiscal '24. A total of $761.5 million for education programs, $555 million for environmental protection and resources, for our energy systems and climate resilience, $538.5 million total for transportation, $7.6 million for small business technical assistance grant programs, $600,000 for downtown revitalization projects, $390 million for human service providers, $40 million for nursing home base rate increases, and $14.7 million for statewide support services for maternal, child, and family health, including $350,000 for the Maternal Mortality and Morbidity Review Committee, which was first funded in the last fiscal year through my amendment that I filed and was successfully able to get through, and now we have continued that funding. In addition, there are also several provisions that the Senate passed that survived conference, and the governor has now signed into law, designed specifically to combat anti-Semitism. And this one in particular, a gratitude to Jeff Roy, $3 million to the Genocide Education Trust Fund. The Genocide Education Act was legislation that Jeff filed with a colleague of ours in the House, in the Senate, that was passed and signed into law a couple years back. And now we've put $3 million into funding that education, requiring a state of hate report in the Commonwealth so we can understand from our public safety officials just where we are. $5.3 million for nonprofit security grants for those nonprofits that are particularly at risk of targeted violence. Multiple resources on anti-Semitism to the schools, and also creating a special commission to combat anti-Semitism. It's a very robust budget, and that's, I know there was a lot, but that's actually just a fraction of what's in the budget. Okay. So we've talked about the first bucket, constituents in the district. We talked about the second budget, which is the budget bucket. And now we're coming to the third bucket, which is policymaking. These are some of the pieces in my personal policy portfolio. I have filed more than 6 bills this term alone, and they fall into each of these categories that you see above, and a few others. Some of these bills include the Community Immunity Act, the Abortion Access Act, midwifery licensure legislation, a bill to create comprehensive coverage for and a holistic approach to post-pregnancy mental health care, election reform and voter access legislation, including changing our last in the nation primary date, better mental health access and supports in K-12 and higher ed, good government improvements like closing a lobbying loophole, lobbying access loophole, and applying the public records law to both the executive branch and the legislature, and also my Plastics Reduction Act, which was passed by the Senate by a bipartisan sweeping vote of 38-2. As I mentioned earlier, I'm also the chair of the Environmental Committee. That committee, we review 350 bills just this term alone. It's a lot of bills, a huge volume of legislation, and the topics include plastics, waste management, forestry, animals, water, pesticides, pollinators, environmental justice, basically air quality, right? If it has anything to do with climate action and environmental protection, and it isn't utilities or energy, it comes to the Environmental Committee. And so we have a really big and robust body of work. I'll also, let's see, we'll go to legislative wins. There are a lot. When I did the count with my staff, this term alone, I've actually passed all or part of 10 different bills of mine that I have personally filed that are now signed into law, which is a huge accomplishment, and a couple more that haven't quite gotten across the finish line, like the Plastics Reduction Act, unfortunately, but we'll come back and keep working on it in January at the start of the next term. Okay, so these are just some of the legislative wins of this session. The Midwives, Maternal Health, and Reproductive Justice. Oh, that's not showing. Wait a minute. Hold on. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. This is a huge, groundbreaking, nation-leading maternal health and midwifery legislation that was signed into law last month. It expands access to birth options. It provides, finally, a path to licensure for midwives who provide care outside of hospital settings. Just for context, 38 other states did that before us. It's a bill that I've been filing since I got into the Senate. The Senate actually passed it unanimously in a previous term, and now finally we've gotten it over the finish line. Both chambers did it. The governor signed it into law, so Massachusetts has become the 39th state to offer licensure for these incredible folks providing wonderful health care. The bill also increases equity and improves health outcomes. It requires insurance coverage for post-pregnancy depression screenings for all post-pregnancy patients, and not just at the pediatrician, but at all sites of care. Coverage for doula services, updating the regulations for birth centers, and also requires the administration of ultrasound services pertaining to pregnancies, that those be supervised by a licensed healthcare professional trained to actually provide care to pregnant people and read ultrasounds. So that's the first one. The Affordable Homes Act, probably several of you, if not all of you, have heard about this one. It's a sweeping housing package. It provides $5.2 billion in authorized long-term capital spending. That is the largest housing investment in state history. The bill includes unprecedented authorizations in modernizing the state's public housing system, boosts programs that support first-time home buyers and home ownership, and provides significant resources to build reasonably priced housing for nurses, teachers, first responders, seniors, and others in our communities who really can't break into the housing market right now. It also includes a number of policy changes that will unlock housing production in our state, such as allowing accessory dwelling units, support for converting vacant commercial space into housing, and also support for sustainable and green housing initiatives, including $150 million authorized to decarbonize public housing. I had an amendment to this bill that was adopted that reflected legislation I filed at the beginning of the term that allows condominium associations to take votes electronically, something a lot of us maybe wouldn't think we needed to pass a bill about, but we did. And that was actually really important because how many times do condo owners all get together in the same physical space anymore? It's actually really hard to do. So we want to make some of these changes. And even condo associations are saying, we want to make things greener, make things more eco-friendly, or change something about the trash. And they need to be able to vote electronically. So we were able to pass legislation to accomplish that goal. In addition, I also secured an amendment authorizing millions in bond authorizations for all of the towns in the district. Okay, Parentage Equity Act. This updates outdated statutes and recognizes the many, many ways that a family becomes a family in the Commonwealth. It dismantles barriers for LGBTQ+ families and those using IVF, allows parents, all parents, not just birth parents, to make decisions regarding their children's health, finances, and education, and also included my bill to modernize language on birth certificates, the forms that we use, so that those forms actually accurately reflect the number and the parents that any child happens to have when they are born. Okay, salary transparency. This increases equity and transparency in pay by requiring large employers to disclose salary ranges and protects an employee's right to ask for those salary ranges. Okay, explicit images and coercive control. This criminalizes the sharing of explicit images of someone without their consent. This is sometimes referred to as the sexting bill. Right, this strengthens, in particular, protections for survivors and enhances education for young people about the dangers of sexting and deepfakes. The HERO Act is the veterans reform package for this term. It modernizes and expands veterans' access to services, including mental health services and medical assistance benefits. It increases benefits for disabled veterans and Gold Star families, and also promotes inclusivity for thousands of women and LGBTQ+ Massachusetts veterans. Gun violence prevention, this was passed a bit earlier in the term. This strengthens our leadership in preventing gun violence and saving lives. It limits the spread of untraceable ghost guns and 3D printed weapons. It also strengthens our red flag law. And the package, both when it came through the Senate and when it was enacted by both chambers and signed into law by the governor, was supported both by gun safety advocates and by our chiefs of police. So it was a real collaborative effort to come up with sensible improvements to our gun safety laws, and now we have those in place. Banning PFAS in firefighter gear. This is a nation-leading measure to protect firefighter safety. It prevents firefighters from getting sick literally by their own protective equipment, by preventing those chemicals from being in that protective equipment in the first place. And then among the most recent things signed into law is the long-term care and oversight legislation. This is a really important piece for patient protections for people in long-term care facilities. It requires the Department of Public Health to inspect each long-term care facility annually to assess the quality of services and compliance with various state rules and regs, and also requires long-term care facilities to develop individualized outbreak response plans to contain the spread of infectious disease. I'm sure we all know why we needed that. There are some things that are left unfinished. Always still hope to get it done. I do share your frustration that these are not done yet, particularly this first one, the Economic Development Bond Bill. The Senate passed a $2.86 billion bond bill to invest in life sciences, climate tech, and small businesses. This would stimulate new and proven industries, support workforce development and talent retention. It actually includes a bipartisan amendment of mine to create a twofold arts laureate program. I had filed a bill to create a choreographer laureate position in the Commonwealth, and a colleague of mine, Republican Senator Pat O'Connor, from not too far from here in Weymouth, he had filed legislation to create a musician laureate position. We got together and worked hard and got this both merged and adopted into the Economic Development Bond Bill. This is actually going to stimulate economic growth and development, particularly in our tourism section, and also, frankly, we probably all need a little bit more arts and culture in our lives. So I am hoping to see resolution on this bill. We have to get to resolution. I am not on the conference committee, but I continue to hope for good things from my colleagues as they continue on those negotiations. The Plastics Reduction Act, I mentioned this earlier. This is the strongest single-use plastic reduction bill ever in the history of the Commonwealth. I'm very proud to have been the chief architect of it. This would ban disposable plastic bags and limit disposable single-use plastic food serviceware. It would also help to clean up our sewer systems by addressing plastic non-flushable wipes. Any of you who have cleaned a baby recently, if it didn't say this is flushable on the top, you were actually using plastic. It also supports statewide composting and several other provisions that are in there. This is a bill that protects both our personal health and our planetary health. The plastics industry actually emits 4 times more greenhouse gases every year than the airline industry, right? 4 times more than the airline industry. That's significant. So if we're serious about taking climate action, we have to address single-use plastics. And you heard me mention personal health, microplastics. Plastics don't go away. They just break down into teeny tiny pieces. Microplastics have been found in human bloodstreams, in brain cells, and placentas, breast milk, right? We all have plastic in us right here, sitting in this room right now. Again, the bill passed the Senate by a sweeping 38-2 bipartisan vote. Unfortunately, the House never picked it up, so it is still sitting in the House. And we'll keep working on it. Clean energy siting, I know Jeff is working hard on this one. Different iterations passed by both chambers. This would expedite and streamline the siting and permitting process for clean energy projects, again, to empower Massachusetts to meet our climate goals, lower utility rates for low and middle income consumers, expand EV tax credits, and several other provisions. The PACT Act about prescription drugs, this would, again, lower the cost of prescription drugs at the pharmacy counter and improve oversight over the pharmaceutical industry. I think we're probably running short. What time is it? We're running short on time. Hurry up. Okay, got it. I'll skip over the rest of those details. And the healthcare cost containment bill. I'm sure we've all experienced this personally. The cost of healthcare can be a lot and deeply challenging for a lot of people. So this bill, this package boosts oversight and transparency in the healthcare sector. It improves patient access to prescribed medication and treatment. It includes tools to control costs. A lot of those tools were based on legislation, 2 bills in particular that I personally filed, and by expanding the types of metrics and measures that our Center for Health Information and Analysis uses to refer entities to another body called the Health Policy Commission, and they are the commission that actually has the direct oversight. So the bill also adds more teeth and tools to HPC to be able to do that implementation and enforcement. And then in addition, we also have some guardrails to private equity investment, expansions, and corporate mergers in healthcare, which I'm sure is top of mind for a lot of you, especially given what we have seen recently with Steward. Whew, so that's a lot of work that we did over the last 2 years. We have very limited time for questions, apparently, but I hope that has been informative, and I'm happy to start taking questions.
Hello, everyone. Great, thank you. We have a good amount of questions, so we'll try to move through with as brief answers, but comprehensive as we can be. The first question, what is the state doing to address the housing problem in Massachusetts?
Thank you for this question. I talked earlier, this one I can be really quick on, because I talked earlier about the Affordable Homes Act, sweeping legislation, $5 billion worth of authorized investment in the bond bill, and we covered a lot of that earlier. So glad I was right on top of that question from the get-go.
The next question, how do you plan on stopping anti-Semitism on college campuses in Massachusetts?
That is a really difficult question. We did put several, you heard me mention earlier, several provisions into the state budget that is now, all of which have been signed into law to combat anti-Semitism. It is a scary, scary time. It's a scary time, especially as we approach the 1-year anniversary of October 7th. It's difficult, it's hard. The state, there are limits to what the state can and cannot do with regard to college campuses. Personally, especially as one of 6 Jewish members of the Senate, and someone with deep personal connections to both my own personal Judaism and the state of Israel, I try to engage whenever and wherever I can. And that has included talking with a lot of parents and a lot of college students, and a lot of high school seniors, right? 12th graders who are trying to make decisions about where to go. They've now made them, right, because it's September. And there are a number of things I do on a personal side as well, as I continue to engage in a lively and wonderful Jewish community, and Jewish communities all throughout our district and throughout the state. And so, it's challenging. It is a really, really difficult time. Our young people are feeling it, for sure. Some of them have spoken with me directly about it. And I've encouraged them to talk with me about it if they want to, as a resource, just to offer myself. So it's difficult. There are no good answers, no easy answers here. But for any of you who might be experiencing difficulty, challenges, anti-Semitism, please report it to the hotline that ADL operates. And that is also something that I'm trying to work with folks. I sit on the Hate Crimes Task Force in Massachusetts, and we're trying to work on better and more robust information. In fact, you heard me mention it in the budget, right? That State of Hate report. Previous reports about acts of hate in the state have only included actions that actually rose to the level of hate crimes. And that is a really high bar to hit and surpass, which inherently means we're not getting a complete picture, right? So this State of Hate report, the language that I wrote about my amendment that came through about the State of Hate report includes not just those incidents that rise to a level of a hate crime, but all of the acts of identity-based hatred and bigotry in the Commonwealth, at least the ones that get reported. Right? We can't do anything about the things that don't get reported. So we are taking a number of steps where we can take those actions. And a huge part of it is, of course, education, right? As we continue to educate students, right? If we're able to provide that education and cultural awareness and inclusivity before students get to college, right? When they're younger, then we should be able to make this better. Right, and you heard me mention the Genocide Education Trust Fund through legislation that Jeff in particular championed, and a colleague of mine in the Senate, Mike Rodrigues. So many things in the works, and inevitably as much as it is, it still won't be enough. We're going to see those acts of hate on college campuses this year, and we're going to have to work our way through it.
Another one we've touched on a little bit. What have you done to support small businesses in Massachusetts?
Great question. Lots of things. See earlier answers and comments about the Small Business Advisory Council. How was that for short? Short and sweet.
Great. Will you debate your upcoming opposing candidate in the upcoming race?
I have always engaged in debates and forums. Unfortunately, this year, my schedule fills up literal months in advance. I was just going through a scheduling meeting earlier today, and there's just no more time. Everything is booked all the way through, pretty much to Thanksgiving at this stage of the game.
Many in the public are concerned about transparency in state government. What are your thoughts or opinions on this issue?
Oh, I love transparency. I continue to work for more transparency every day. I'm really proud to champion transparency and be a proven transparency champion in the Senate. Among the many things that we do are we publish all of my votes on our website. So you can go right there and click on votes and see them all from the entirety of the session. I also, every time somebody asks for a roll call, if you want to take a vote, a recorded vote in the Senate, we literally have to have somebody stand up and ask for it, and then a number of people stand up with that person to support the ask. So I stand up. And at the beginning, in 2019, when I was first elected into the Senate, it was pretty much me and all the Republicans standing up to support roll call votes, which is fine. I can stand on my own. Stand on my own within my party. That's fine. But lo and behold, over time, a lot of people of my colleagues on in the Democratic Party have also started standing up. And so, culture change can take a little while, but it is happening.
What is your position on raise the age?
Raise the age. I'm going to guess that this question pertains to criminal liability. So there's a lot of science about this that talks about hot brains and cold brains and heated moments and cooler moments, and that our maturity levels shift when we are cooler. We can think in a more mature way at an earlier age than when we are in heated moments. And a lot of criminal activity happens in heated moments. So there was a proposal this year to raise the age from 18 to 19. That in particular, that's the age of criminal majority, right? So you would have to be 19 instead of 18 to be charged and processed through the adult criminal system rather than the juvenile criminal system. That change to me makes sense, especially because a lot of high school seniors turn 18 in the middle of the year. And so by raising the age from 18 to 19, we achieve uniformity for students who are still in high school. And that, you think about high school seniors, sometimes you do things you might later regret. And we have a juvenile justice system to address those situations. So that's how that came up this term.
The practice of asking legislators to read and think about thousands of pages in the final hour of the session is plainly manipulative and undemocratic. What can be done to change that?
That is a good question. I will say the things that come out toward the end of formal session, and let's be clear, right? Let's be clear that the formal session ends on July 31st, which usually extends into the hours of the wee hours of the morning on August 1st, which certainly happened this term. Anything that's coming up at that stage has already been reviewed, analyzed, and voted on in both chambers earlier in the term. The things that are coming through in those moments are the compromises, right? The Senate had certain provisions that the House didn't have, the House had certain provisions that the Senate didn't have, and we worked out a compromise. So all of those things have actually been read. I've certainly read them, looked at them, decided how to vote on them, asked questions on them before I voted, and did all of that analytical work when the bills came up the first time around. So when they come back the next time, even if they're in the wee hours in the morning, and it's certainly not my favorite hour to be on the Senate floor, but when they come back, we're really just looking at what changed, right? What changed from the versions we've already passed? And we already had plenty of opportunity to also look at whatever the other chamber passed, right? So which pieces did the Senate not do that the House did that we're now going to put into this compromise piece, and vice versa. So I just want to clarify that A, legislative work is still happening, and B, even when formal sessions are already over, and B, all of those thousands of pages, hundreds really, have actually been looked at before. And at that stage, we're just looking at the tweaks that have happened in order to achieve a compromise. I would love for things to move faster and more effectively and efficiently earlier in the term. And if somebody has good ideas about how to make that happen, I would love to hear them.
Do you think that ranked choice voting would correct the abuses of one-party rule in Massachusetts?
I think ranked choice voting is a really important step forward toward enfranchising voters, further enfranchising voters, right? Giving you, the voters, the opportunity to pick whomever you want. I'm actually the lead sponsor on ranked choice voting legislation that would basically clear the red tape out for municipal governments and municipalities to decide to use ranked choice voting in your local elections. At the moment, no municipality can do that without passing legislation and having it signed by the governor in addition to whatever the local vote is. That's actually created a lot of confusion in one case in particular because people in the town voted yes on ranked choice voting for their local town election, and the bill hasn't passed through the legislature. So even though they voted yes and they were looking for ranked choice voting on their ballots, they can't have it because the bill didn't move. And that just seems silly to me. We should just clear that red tape and let towns do whatever the voters in the town choose to do. I have been a consistent supporter of ranked choice voting all the way along throughout my tenure in the Senate, and so I continue to look for opportunities to advance ranked choice voting as an opportunity for people.
And with that is the last of our questions. I want to thank you, Senator Rausch, for answering them. I want to thank the Franklin Senior Center for hosting us today and for letting us run a little bit over our time. Thank you to members of the press who were able to come here today and report on this great event. And of course, thanks to all of you for being here to enjoy this with us.
Thanks, everybody.
If anyone has any final questions, feel free to write down a question with your contact information at the table up front, and we'll shoot you an email to get you back with that answers we can. And if you'd like to talk to the Senator one-on-one, we can set up a time for office hours where you can chat with the Senator for 15 minutes about the issues on your mind. And I'll be at the front. The Senator has to head out, but thanks so much, everyone, and look forward to talking soon.